Put your hands together for Most Reverend Dr. Matthew Hassan Kukah.
Very risky. Well done. Thank you very much. I think Gloria has done what needs to be done. All that is left for us is to concur. But when I received, I have to wait for the chairman and our host to finish. When I received the invitation, one of the things that struck me was I kept going, electoral accountability and democratic stability. The question I try to ask is which one is subject and which one is object? Does electoral accountability, is it the subject? Democratic stability, is it the object? Do we have democratic stability to ensure electoral accountability or either? But I think that what needs to be said has, as I said, already been said. There's one of my books I kept looking for and I couldn't find it, but the title of the book is a Book of Ifs. Book of Ifs. And it poses a lot of hypothetical questions. For example, what would have happened to the world if didn't eat the apple? What would have happened to the world if Hitler had lost the election? And for us locally, it would be to say, what will happen to Nigeria? Or what would have happened to our elections if my friend Chidi Odinkalu were the chairman of INEC, not Mahmoud? What would be the result of our elections if the Chief Justice of Nigeria were Annalisa Agbakoba or Sam Amadi or my son Itodo? Would anything change? I think that the very fact that we are having this conversation is important, but I think we always tend to make too many mistakes in Nigeria in the quality of our analysis and our understanding of the basis for our analysis. I happen to be one of those Nigerians that is deeply convinced about the greatness of our nation. I'm also very convinced about what we have achieved. And we have achieved a lot. But the endless self-flagellation that we have exposed ourselves to is the reason why every small African country now is not doing the kind of things it is doing to Nigeria and can do the things and get away with it. But like I said to my parishioners, if you are always beating your wife, one day somebody will beat her on the street and say, I'm sure your hand is tired, I'm just helping you. We are not the worst election. I mean, we've not conducted the worst elections in the world. And don't get me wrong, everything that has happened is not so much what has happened, is the quality of our analysis of why it happened. And we in Nigeria have ascribed our own responsibility is in suspended animation. We do nothing. It's just INEC that has destroyed our country. It's the Supreme Court that has made it impossible for us to conduct elections. It is okay. We can find scapegoats. But this scapegoating will not solve our problem because we are part of the problem. Each and every one of us has a duty and a responsibility. Whether to blow the whistle when you see things going wrong, or to at least allow for the fact that these problems will not be solved by mere change in individuals occupying particular positions. We have to be agents of change by the quality of our interrogation of the institutions and the systems under which we operate. Because you have to ask yourself, here is a country where a substantial percentage of the elite have spent their time and their life stealing from the country, and stealing so stupidly and so foolishly that they don't even keep the product of their theft locally. You can count the number of Nigerians who can say that their children are in the best universities in the world because of money from their labor. Governance, we all seem to accept, is a criminal enterprise. And when people are struggling to get in, Not because we have anything new, it's just that we just want to be part of this mess. So I think the first question to ask, are we ready for elections in the way and manner that we understand? Are we ready for democracy? Or, as John Major said, and I will quote John Major, former British Prime Minister, he said, in the lecture he delivered, he said, after 850 years of developing our democracy, 850 years of developing our democracy, please, hands up in the audience, hands up, those who think our democracy is now perfect after 850 years. Of course, no hand went up. That is that after 850 years, British people are not in agreement that their constitution or their rules have become so perfect that they don't have a problem. And he continues, so they believe that we can pick up our democracy and transplant it into other countries where they have no historical instincts of democracy, where they have a different culture. Is fatuous. People will build up their own form of democracy in their own way. And it is arrogant for us to think that we can artificially transplant our democracy to other countries. And to show you the mindset of Nigeria, see the way civil society and everybody celebrated all the reports that Nigerian civil society organizations tried were not important. It is until the EU brought out his report, then Nigerians started celebrating. The point I'm making, and the point we need to address, are we in a democracy? Have we prepared the ground to expect a certain level of accountability? Can we have electoral accountability when we do not have financial accountability, when we do not have economic accountability, when we do not have academic accountability, when we have no accountability anywhere at all? Why is it that we expect to have electoral accountability standing alone? Electoral accountability and democratic stability are contingent on how we ourselves wish to play and the rules we want to play by. So, you know, the United Nations conducted a survey in 2016. And they wanted to find out which are the most trusted group of people around the world. Surprise, surprise. It wasn't the bishops. It wasn't priests. The highest score went, first of all, to medical doctors. And after medical doctors, the next most trusted group of people were hairdressers and barbers. Yes, because when you go and sit in front of a barber, you make an act of faith. You may choose a particular hairstyle, but you have to trust that he can deliver on that. And then it goes down and down. And at the bottom are the politicians. And it is also very interesting but significant that it's not only in Nigeria that we don't like politicians. Everywhere there's no single country in the world that loves politicians. They are the most presented as the most contemptible human beings. They are the most vile human beings. And yet, how does it happen that everybody is struggling to get into politics? And guess what? In those days, tailors will put a sign that they are London trained. Barbers will put a sign of where they are trained. But remember that if you want to go and teach in a school, they'll ask you, where is your certificate? If you want a job as a cook, they'll ask you, where have you trained? If you want, politics is the only thing that has no qualification. Nobody needs a certificate. I had two friends of mine who were politicians. They got into a quarrel. And they came to me to try and resolve the quarrel. The politician said he gave this his friend 50 million naira to help him win the election, and that he didn't do so well. So they came to me for judgment. So I asked the man, tell me the story. I said, look, I gave this guy 50 million. The records are there. So I turned to the accused. So, Oga, what happened now? He looked at me. He said, Bishop, politics no get receipt. Politics no get receipt. Politics has no receipt. So everything is on free fall. But the point we need to make is that electoral outcomes, they are sufficient, they are necessary, but they are not a sufficient condition for justifying that we guarantee democratic stability. Because all the elections, you can vote for anybody. All of this excitement, like I say to young people when they are getting married, a wedding is a ceremony, it's not a marriage. A wedding is not a marriage. Ordination is not the priesthood. So elections are not democracy. They're just part of the process. But they are a tool for legitimation. That is the process by which it is conducted is what creates legitimacy. And yet in the lives of ordinary people, what creates legitimacy is the ability of the government in power to meet their basic demands. The Mo Ibrahim, as a student at the Kennedy School, I took a course on government, and I wasn't too keen on the course, but the Robert, Professor Rodbert, whom Samamadi knows very well, he insisted, he wanted me to be on the course. I said, Oga, I don't have time. He said, no, but Kukah, I want your name, just come to the program, even if you don't attend it. I said, but I won't do it. I said, just come, I want you. And I took the course. We now spent time. I didn't know that he was more or less a consultant for Mo Ibrahim. I don't know what happened, but we spent time studying governance across the African continent. And part of our study was largely what was responsible for the governance indicators that are now popular. That is, how do you assess democratic stability? Do people have a voice? Is the system accountable? Is there economic stability? Is there political stability? Is there absence of violence? Is government effective? Are the regulatory mechanisms effective? What is the quality of the rule of law? And do individuals have the ability and the capacity to participate in the processes? What obstacles are there? Our daughter Lois is here. I'm still waiting to see how she's going to climb here. And they are saying they've not been taken on board. And elsewhere in different places now, we didn't think that people with disability, what are they doing with election? We didn't tell blind people, stay at home now, what is your business? If you are a cripple, why will you be trying to go to vote? To do what? People would, but have I lost my rights? I remember I served in the West panel, in the West committee. When we went to Lagos, it was one of the most memorable days for me. We were taking petitions. And this young man came. And he said, okay, you are saying that there must be thumb printing in this process. He was wearing a shirt, but just to shock us, he made like this, a shock. He had no hands. So me, I have no hands. Where am I going to get the thumb to print on your ballot paper? He lost his hands, I think, during the Liberian War. So this system must continue to renew and improve itself. But the point I'm making is that sometimes there may be no direct correlation between electoral accountability, that we have free, fair, and credible elections, and the quality of performance or the quality of governance. Those of you who love football, I don't know whether you remember what Amokachi did in 1995 when he went to play for Everton. They put him on the bench. He wasn't going, he was, okay, the chance comes. He was on the bench. All of a sudden, somebody got injured or so. The coach, Amokachi didn't talk to him, he just jumped into the pitch. And as Amokachi jumped, if you go to Google, maybe you will find something. Because as he jumped into the pitch, and Everton was at that pretty racist club, they weren't taking black people. I don't know whether there was a black man in Everton before Amokachi. Maybe he was the first. But he jumped into the pitch, not directed by the coach, and took the ball from there to the goal and scored. Now, so he wasn't allowed by the coach to play, but he jumped. When he scored, everybody started clapping. So what I'm saying in effect is that for a fairly dysfunctional environment such as ours, where the rules really don't matter, where people shift the rules aside in order to pass, we must be modest in our expectations. Modest in our expectations, because it is quite likely Elections will produce people unintended results. You can hear Senator Sani is here. I don't live in Kaduna. I'm from Kaduna. I don't live here, but you know what happened. And you know the boast that Muslims were going to govern. Oh, we will govern for 20 years uninterrupted. This is our own plan. Christians will have no seat at the table. We have a Muslim ticket. If you come from Southern Kaduna, if you live in Kaduna, you know what I'm talking about. And now for me, one of the biggest jokes was when the former governor was leaving office. No quarrel with anybody. Just one day, just say, Atiab Development Association is banned or proscribed. There was no case in court. There was no petition before you. That was the last action. And then see the way this God works. Suddenly a Muslim ticket goes and produces an Atiab man and makes the welfare, the security, the protection of the same governor is now in the hands of an Atiab man whom you proscribed before you left. So elections will always give us what I call unintended consequence. But also important to understand that a contest is always a contest. Contest is always a contest. And you use what the experience of this to prepare for the next context. So let us not be despondent. Let us not be despondent. The best is still to come. Unless we don't time we worry about, oh, the next generation, where will the next generation doesn't care about, because listen, you are using mobile phone today. It wasn't this therefore that it's not the generation that went before us that gave us mobile phone. Every generation will contest its own problems. Okay, let's be concerned with the problems of the moment. Yes, we dream about the future, but if we make like somebody said, today is the tomorrow you dreamt about yesterday. But let's not be nervous. We should be nervous that we are underperforming, because there are things we could have done differently and we can do differently. But there is a new consciousness that is emerging, and it's that consciousness that we must build on. So justices will do what justices will do. There's very little I have, and I think I better make reference to it if it's any consolation. I am saddened by the fact that the judiciary has now found itself being sucked into politics. I would have also been sad, and I'm also sad to the extent that even us who are priests in the church, we are getting sucked into politics, because you will never come out the same. You go to wrestle with a pig inside Potopoto, you may defeat the pig, but you cannot go around now showing yourself that see what you look like. I'm not saying the people in politics are pigs, no. But I'm saying that politics has its own rhyme, its own rhythm. And if you have a certain kind of moral responsibility, a lot of people have been saying to me in the last 30 years, people come and contest election, come and contest presidency of Nigeria. Oga, make her finish with parish work first. Because if I were under that illusion, there are a lot of people who have told me, we will pay for you. You don't have to pay, we will pay for you. Because we believe you make a good president. But I know that I will not make a good president, because good presidents are not what you are looking for. All of you who are married now, if you come to my church and I say, Oga, I want to make your husband, you say to his wife, Madam, this is your husband. Kai, wonderful human being. I want to make him chairman of parish council, because you must be having a wonderful time. A man of this, a poor woman will look at you and say, oh, poor man, he doesn't know what I'm going through at home. So in politics, we are not looking for holy people. That is not what we are looking for. We are not even looking for what you call good men, because what do you mean by good? We have potholes. We want people who can fix our potholes. We don't have electricity. We want people who can give us electricity. So if we focus about, I think we should, on processes, they are important. But very often we are ignoring our own responsibilities. That is that after you have elected somebody, what happens? And this is where we are committing the worst sin. That is that we just elect people and we assume they will do good for us and they will act in our best interest. It is never like that. Boyfriends know Girlfriends know. Every girlfriend will know that a boyfriend is not a husband. Husbands know that a girlfriend is not a wife. The process of transition from being boyfriend to husband and girlfriend to wife is a difficult, because that is the process of marriage. And after you've gotten married, you suddenly realize, this man has changed, though. He's not the kind of person. He hasn't. Even if he has changed, you have to now adjust. So we can't assume that we are looking for good men who will come and set our country on the right path. It is the mechanisms, the processes of engagement that we have, which includes the kind of work that Gloria is doing, the kind of work that civil society is doing, whether it's Itodo, whether it's Sam Amadi, whether it's Senator Sani, because we have to constantly assault this system. Now, in November 2000, you remember the elections in America between Bush and Gore. It was the most contested election. But there are many things many of us forget. Because when those elections were coming to an end, it was very clear, it seemed very clear, that Gore was coasting to victory. But Florida became a problem. And the problem with Florida is that Jeff was the younger brother of Bush, the candidate. So people felt Jeff was likely to tilt the balance in favor of his brother. And it was evident that the Secretary of State in Florida was also a co-chair of Bush's campaign. So Democrats said, we will not accept this outcome. So people rushed all the way to Florida. Then, of course, the problem started over the counting of the vote, because in America, there is a threshold, there's a date beyond which you can no longer continue. The process must end, which is what I think I will come to at the end. So what I think, our daughter Gloria is talking about. That is for these processes to end ahead of the swearing in of a president. But there was a problem, because Bush was leading with just 327 votes. And the problem now was, even in the middle of the night, Al Gore had called Bush, just like Jonathan called Buhari, and said, I concede. At 3 o'clock in the morning. But as the results now began to change, Gore called Bush back and said, Oga, I withdraw the concession. Locally, they haven't started celebration. He withdrew because chances, they said two things were happening. We now need to manually count the votes. And the law allowed that. And the law said that if the difference is 0.5, then you can count. But the difference here was 0.1. They started manual counting. And many of you remember, there were what they call pregnant charts. Okay? People were looking up, how did they punch the ballot paper? There were hanging charts and pregnant charts. Okay? There were overvotes, what they call overvotes, and undervotes. Overvotes were votes that were cast outside the offices for the contestation. And then undervotes were votes that people cast without saying whom they were voting for. So of course there was a natural, and there was even what they call butterfly votes. Butterfly votes were about 3,000 votes that went to Pat Buchanan by mistake. So these things are not new. But guess what happened? At the end of it all, the Supreme Court of Florida, because American states have Supreme Courts, the Supreme Court of Florida now ruled that, look, this process must now be recounted in 4 counties. The Republicans said, no, we don't agree. And there were about 50 suits within less than 1 month. 50 cases in court, challenging here and there. Finally, this matter dragged on till December. And as you recall, after the Supreme Court of Florida ruled, Bush's campaign team petitioned the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court took over the matter and ruled in favor. So what I'm saying is that these contestations will always be there. So let me try and end, because I'm sure that I am running out of time. I served as a member of the OAS panel. And I think here we must be careful. Because civil society in Nigeria and the academic community in Nigeria, I'm sorry to say, people are intellectually lazy. People are shouting that, oh, put that panel, we didn't see the report. The report is there. How many people have read it? Always panel, people don't read the report. They just pick one single line and start running around with it. Because if civil society had read those reports, it would make up a basket of issues that must be resolved. Including, because we cannot simply leave this job to INEC. People who are working in INEC, they are not there, they are just appointed. They are not there because they are the most brilliant, most intelligent people. Public policy is fed by agitation from the academia, from civil society, from people outside the system. The fact that Professor Gewando is a professor of political science in the University of Jos, he's not the best political scientist in Nigeria. There might be better political scientists who are doing something else. And you see from the quality of articles that people write. So these processes are a contestation, and we must aggregate the various interests. So we recommended, for example, because we looked at all this, and our recommendation was that, look, let's give ourselves 6 months. You must conclude elections in 6 months. So there's a 6-month belt. And within those 6 months, you allow 4 months for all the running around, tribunals, by whatever, must finish their job. The remaining 2 months are for Supreme Court to take a final decision. That's all. Now, unfortunately, but maybe I shouldn't say unfortunately, where we are concerned with everybody, including myself, have you got your PVC? That's what we are saying in churches, in mosques, everywhere. We were concerned with the PVC. We didn't factor in other shenanigans. But now we know. Because even in the game of football, when we were playing football here, we say if you miss leg, if you miss ball, no miss leg. Okay? But as you can see, even in the game of football, how complicated the penalties have become. I'm not talking of penalty as in the punishments have become. Things you could get away with 4 years ago, you can no longer get away with them. Then because many of us call penalty from the side, and they don't trust, okay, maybe it happens that there is a penalty. The referee was cleaning his eye. He didn't see the penalty. Now we have a VAR to help the referee. In the same way, we must continue to improve in the options that are available to our people. But let's not focus on just making sure, make sure you swear them in before, you finish this before. It doesn't mean the crews will not be there, because the system may still deliver you a crooked man one way or the other. So if we focus only on these outcomes, we must not ignore other factors. Finally, Justice Ben Kanyip published a very beautiful paper, because I was asking, I said, what can go wrong? What is wrong with our election? Professor Kanyip said to me, the way that this thing has been designed, in fact, the expression he used is that for a petitioner to get his case overturned is just the same with the difficulty that Jesus foresaw when he said, it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle. And even PDP, I'm sorry to say, I think that in the height of their arrogance, after they had designed this thing to suit them, they now say we will be in power for 60 years. Then they didn't anticipate that Jonathan will come and drop the ball and say, no, I'm a gentleman. Now the shoe is on the other foot. And you are going to continue to watch this feeling of arrogance. We have it, we will hold it for this number of years. And if you hear a Nigerian politician boasting about how long he will be in power, when somebody tells you Muslims will be in power, Igbos will be in power, Yoruba will be in power, Hausa will be in power, the only reason they are making that point is they are just saying our people will continue to steal from Nigeria, and we will continue, because without stealing you can't win election. So all these characters who are telling you will be in power for this period of time, they are just saying we will continue to control the stealing box. So the issues are much more than that. And I want to end by saying, let's not make the judiciary a scapegoat. And I'm happy that Gloria mentioned the issue of, I think, Justice Akas and a few other people. You see, I'm not a lawyer, but I like law. Very often, especially in human rights issues, you will discover that minority judgments, even if it's by one person, minority judgments are often prophetic, because they see the future. They may not be expedient now, After all, when Justice Akas delivered a minority judgment in, is it Oshun or Ondo? Oshun. By the following election, he was vindicated. So we must also pay attention, even when we lose a case, we must pay attention to what the minority judgment has said. So as I said, this is a journey of 1,000 miles. We have barely started. We still have a long way to go. But I want to end by saying, please, Nigeria, this country, we are doing well. And I can assure you, I want to assure you that where we are now, I think the worst is behind us. The worst is behind us. All we need to do is to become more vigilant and more interested in the problems of this country. I hear all these young people say, people are sending their their children away to Nigeria. Let them go. I'm sorry to say, let them go. We will be here. They will have to knock. Because you see, we are not even like the Asians. Because the Asians send their people abroad to the best universities so that they can come back and govern the country. Lee Kuan Yew went to Cambridge and he set such a high threshold. He got a first class. And of course, even when he knew he wanted his son to be prime minister one day. But when he sent his son to the same Cambridge, he didn't have to tell the boy, you want to be prime minister? Second class upper is not good enough. And his teacher in Cambridge, that is the guy who is now the current president prime minister, his son. His teacher in Cambridge said that he had never met a more sophisticated mathematician. Lee Kuan Yew had set the threshold for public service so high that if you got a first class, you went to the public service. If you got a second class upper, you went to the public service. But guess what he did? He raised the salary of civil servants by 80%. Singaporean civil servants were the best paid anywhere in the world. So when you compare what a country is going through with the quality of public service, you will know that it's not enough. Every governor, every president is probably struggling to do the best for the country. But the quality of instruments and institutions for delivering services are still lacking in quality. So I want to end on that note and thank you very much, Gloria, and say that the battle has just started. We hope that the next election will be better than the current election. Thank you very much.
Please put your hands together for the keynote speaker. Has he spoken our minds? I believe he has. Thank you so much, sir. We are very grateful. Please put your hands together for him till he sits down. Thank you so much to the keynote speaker.